Welcome back, True Seeker. The Super Bowl 61 logo has been revealed since this is being brought up in the chat. It is quite interesting that it's a wave. Of course, next year the Super Bowl is in Los Angeles, a city on the ocean. But of course, the Super Bowl just won by Seattle, who recently got the hockey team, the Kraken, which is a monster from the ocean. So we'll see what that means within a year's time in terms of the NFL's little tricky symbolism and predictive programming. But yeah, big viral topic and conversation piece. What I want to focus on in this stream is two things. One, the flooding that devastated the Seattle area back in December might be hard to remember with everything we've been bombarded with since, including bombing Venezuela and all the madness with ICE and now the disappearance and seeming kidnapping of an NBC news anchor's a mother. But there's just so many things we're always getting. It's hard to remember what happened even a week ago. So I want to talk about that. And then I also want to talk about this tribute to the Puerto Rican power grid going down numerous times, especially ever since Hurricane Maria. But why it's interesting they do this at a Super Bowl hosted by the 49ers when 13 years ago, the 49ers were in the Harbaugh Bowl versus the Ravens, and there was a 34-minute blackout on the 34th day of the year in a game the Ravens won with 34 points. That Super Bowl was just days after Janet Napolitano warned that the next 9/11 is not if, but when, and it is the power grid going down in some kind of attack on the grid, possibly a cyber attack or an EMP attack. I want to talk about this because there was a significant power outage in San Francisco 50 days before the Super Bowl. And even last night when I was doing my stream, the power went out here for a little bit in Washington State, the state that just won the Super Bowl. And I happen to live in this little tiny town of Prosser, Washington, where Kellen Moore comes from, who was the new coach in the NFL this year with the Saints. But yeah, let's just start right here. Again, December 11th, Seattle and the surrounding areas were the top story in the nation for the 6 rivers that had flooded. And of course, that weekend, the Seahawks played Phillip Rivers 6 days after his birthday. But I made the point then, it reminded me of the flooding of Hurricane Harvey in Houston winning their first World Series shortly after over Los Angeles, which was on fire at the time with the La Tuna fires. But yeah, December 11th was the pinnacle of the flooding. And that was 60 days before Super Bowl 60. And it was shortly after Cal Raleigh set the catcher home run record with 60 home runs. But the flood rains that led to that devastating flooding on December 11th, they did start December 9th, 129, like Seahawks equals 129, who just improved to 12-9 versus the Patriots in the Super Bowl. And in light of the Seahawks going to 3 straight Super Bowls in years that we got a new pope, Super Bowl 40, 48, and 60, it's interesting that the flood rain started to come down 87 days after the Pope's birthday. Remember, the first act of weather warfare was admitted to August 15th, 1952, on the Jesuit order's birthday. Jesuits served the Pope. And again, if you run the alphabetic order forward, Seahawks is 87. If you run it in reverse, Seahawks is 129. But with regards to 52, and remember, Vice News wrote the article making fun of my work on the World Series that Houston won, where I talked so much about 52 and how Matt Harvey was the first pitcher to pitch in Houston after the flooding of Harvey 52 days before the start of the World Series. In the game where Rivers played, after 6 rivers flooded, the Seahawks won with 6 field goals and became 5-2 at home, and the Colts became 2-5 away. And again, I talked about that before the game was played. If you want to go back and watch the video, I linked it on the post page to go back and watch that video. I was saying, isn't it interesting how the Seahawks can become 5-2 at home after the flooding, and the Colts can fall to 2-5 away? And I reminded that the original Seahawks team was the Miami Seahawks that became the Baltimore Colts. But yeah, last night, Sam Darnold picked up his 52nd win. Mike Vrabel, the coach of the Patriots, picked up his 52nd total loss, regular season and postseason. So, yeah, this was, no doubt this was a major clue for what was to come. And it was just like what they did to Houston. And remember, in the AL pennant, between the Toronto Blue Jays and the Seattle Mariners. Who knocked the Mariners out of the postseason? George Springer, who went from Houston to Toronto, and he did it by the numbers. So I'm thinking about that too. But Cal Raleigh, after that 60th homer, his bat just went flat. And again, that's because it was all part of the predictive programming for the Seahawks winning Super Bowl 60. And keep in mind, Cal Raleigh's from the Carolinas, just like Drake May. The endless scripting. Kobe Bryant came through the Carolinas into the NBA, drafted by Charlotte. Again, yesterday was the unveiling of the 19-foot-tall Kobe Bryant statue. The Seahawks have Kobe Bryant on their team. They're up 19-0 at one point in the game when Seattle's the only major city in America that has a gematria value of 19. But yeah, now getting to this, the halftime show where you saw the exploding Transformers, again, in tribute to Puerto Rico, which has lost its power a lot. We've been covering that over the years. Look how all of this comes together. So the song that he performed in Spanish translates to the power outage. And it came out on September 16th. That's the day leaving 106 days left in the year. What a fitting song to perform at the last game of the 106th NFL season, which was full of 106 rituals, including the Seahawks winning yesterday, 106 days from their general manager's birthday, Mr. Schneider. That song is 3 minutes and 22 seconds long. That translates to 202 seconds. San Francisco equals 202, like Darnold had 202 passing yards in the game yesterday. From the anniversary of Puerto Rico being acquired by the U.S., December 10th, which is also when the flooding period was in Washington State. But from that day to the Super Bowl, 60 days later, the December 11th date I just showed you, the pinnacle flooding date, was a span of 60, but Washington was also flooding December 10th as well. It just got really bad on December 11th. So the flooding was really happening 60 days before the Super Bowl, and even into that day that was a span of 60 days from the Super Bowl. But yeah, how perfect. They have the Puerto Rican singer, 60 days before Super Bowl 60. We had acquired that territory in history, which we use for military strategic purposes. The album that song's on, it was teased on May 2nd, 2022, and then the single was put out 4 days later on May 6th. I just want you to see that power outage equals 52 and 56. And the Super Bowl yesterday was on 56 date numerology. Notice Cooper Kupp had a great game, who was the MVP of Super Bowl 56, who's from Washington State. But yeah, about the 49ers hosting this Super Bowl. You might recall the 34-minute blackout at Super Bowl 47. Here we are now in the time of Trump, number 47, who protested yesterday's halftime show. You might also recall that leading up to that blackout Super Bowl, there was a primetime football game between the 49ers and Steelers in Candlestick Park on December 19th, 2011. And the power went out 2 times in the game. They had to delay the Monday Night Football game because the power kept going out at the stick. The stick, they call it, like a candlestick, right? The power's out. You got to use a candle. Think about it, you guys. But look at this. From the power going out at that game between the 49ers and Steelers at Candlestick to the Super Bowl with the blackout in New Orleans, which is kind of like the voodoo occult city, 412 days later. And of course, Pittsburgh was playing the 49ers in the power outage game, but Pittsburgh's the 412 area code. The Browns this year had the big upset against Pittsburgh and became 4-12 with number 12, Shadur Sanders, who made his first start in week 12. But yeah, 412 days later from that incident to the Super Bowl. And that's how you can see these things really aren't an accident, and we're being played with. We're being purposefully inconvenienced. We're being fed riddles that are hiding right in front of our face. People aren't thinking about, the power's out at Candlestick. All right. So yeah, Pittsburgh, the 412. And just to remind, there was a power outage this year on December 20th in San Francisco. That was 1 day after the anniversary of the power outage game with Pittsburgh. So December 20th, a power outage in San Francisco. 50 days before the Super Bowl. Pittsburgh 50 like San Francisco. We always talk about 50 in San Francisco. So many 50 rituals there. Again, we're talking about the team that was once 5-0 in Super Bowls. Keep in mind, America equals 50. Donald 50. The U.S., the land of 50 states and several territories like Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico wants statehood, but the U.S. says no. They want to keep it at 50. Remember, San Francisco is the home of the Church of Satan. It has moved to the Hell's Kitchen neighborhood in New York, but the Church of Satan was founded in 1966, the year of the first Super Bowl season. Last night, the Patriots fell to 6-6 in Super Bowls. Did you know that in last night's game, there was 666 total yards of offense, the number of the beast? 666. Seattle was playing in the winner of the game. Seattle's known for the Beast Quake with Marshawn Lynch, who's from the Bay Area, who was part of the festivities. Remember, the last time the Seahawks and 49ers played, the controversy was that Marshawn Lynch didn't get the ball at the goal line to win it for the Seahawks, and interception was thrown. Russell Wilson's 21st pass picked by number 21, Malcolm Butler, to give the Patriots Tom Brady his 21st postseason win. Then last night, the 21st Super Bowl on NBC in a game full of 21s. We had Drake May, for example, to get sacked 6 times to get to 21 sacks in the postseason. His 2 interceptions gave Seattle 21 interceptions on the year. The game was put away with it really was a sack fumble, but they scored it as an interception to get the stats right. But number 21 knocked the ball out that was returned by number 7 for the touchdown to put him up 21 and put the nail in the coffin. Anyway, 666 total yards of offense last night. And from the Beastquake, funny enough, from the Beastquake to the game last night, 181 months on the nose. Keep in mind the Beastquake, it can be written, that date, January 8th, can be written 8-1. Mark of the Beast equals 81. Kobe Bean Bryant, 81. The career high, 81 in his 666th game. He promoted the 666 workout. Last night was the anniversary of his statue going up as the Seahawks win with Kobe Bryant on the team. But yeah, 181 months from the Beastquake game, the 42nd prime. The Beast rules for 42 months in Revelation. 42 points in the game last night, 29-13. A revenge game where the Niners, or not the Niners, but the Seahawks lost to the Patriots in Arizona. Arizona equals 42 and Super Bowl 49. Don't forget, Revelation equals 49. And again, Brady became 4-2 in Super Bowls in that game. But yeah, the singer last night, his album that this song's on, The Blackout, the album name equals 181. And it also equals 64. With the alphabetic order 181, with numerology applied to each letter, 64, like he wore number 64 in tribute, they said, to his uncle who recently died at 64. I was trying to find out when his uncle recently died. I could not find that, but I bet it's something like Snoop Dogg's mom. Remember, Snoop Dogg's mom died right before he performed at Super Bowl 56. Snoop Dogg equals 112 like Super Bowl. She died 112 days before the Super Bowl. I'm guessing something similar happened to his uncle. But 64 was also the official death toll from Hurricane Maria that took out the power grid for a long time in Puerto Rico. And don't forget, you guys can go back and look at my old posts. Years before his album came out, the headline on CNN that day from September 16th was Hurricane Maria targeting Puerto Rico, like militarism, targeting. The storm was targeting Puerto Rico on the day leaving 106 days left in the year. Then the album comes out on the anniversary of that, and now here we are in the last game of the 106th NFL season. But yeah, 64 was the official death toll for Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. I can't believe that was already 2017. Man, time flies. And they said that song, The Blackout, on the U.S. Hot Latin Songs chart, it peaked at number 19. I mean, are you kidding me? Seattle 19, up 19-0 in the game. Unbelievable. But yeah, the other thing I'm reminded of is Super Bowl 49 was in Arizona, and Janet Napolitano was the 21st governor of Arizona for another 21. And she said when she was the head of the Department of Homeland Security that the next 9/11 was not if, but when. Remember, last night, the Patriots came into the game 9-11 versus the Seahawks. Again, Seattle. They built Seattle's construction firm, Magnuson Klemenkic Associates, built the stadium where the Seahawks won last night. They also helped build the World Trade Centers. Again, Boeing's out of Seattle. The Japanese-American who designed the World Trade Centers is out of Seattle. Seattle is very connected to 9/11, as I've talked about so many times over the years. But yes, This year, Drake May became 9-11. 9-11 on the anniversary of the Patriot Act. Last night, the Seahawks went up 9-0 with 11 seconds left. 9-0 with 11 seconds. Janet Napolitano, the former governor of Arizona, the former head of Department of Homeland Security, said the next 9/11 is not if, but when, and it's an attack on the power grid. She really doubled down on that in January of 2013. That was just days before Super Bowl 47, where the blackout happened at the Super Bowl between the 49ers and Ravens. Super Bowl 47. Now here we are in the time of Trump, number 47, who boycotted the Super Bowl last night, and Bad Bunny. Think about it. From Super Bowl 47 to 60s, 13 years later, right? 13 years later, 13 stripes, the Patriots. CNN had a story up. They might still have it up about how Bad Bunny has redefined what American patriotism is. Okay, it was a pictured story, but now it's just a small subheadline down here. Bad Bunny's Super Bowl halftime performance redefined what it means to be an American patriot. Let me see if anybody else covered this story outside of CNN. Yeah, CNN was really the one that phrased it that way. But okay. Again, 13 years later, a matter a matter of time. So anyway. Yeah, here's all the articles with Napolitano. January 24, 2013. That was just days before Super Bowl 47. She wrote a formal document for DHS March 7th, 2013, shortly after the game. And then as she exited, it was crazy because I had just learned Gematria like 2 weeks before this. And I remember at that same time, Channel 4 in the UK and the National Geographic Channel of the US, they put it out just maybe a week or two after. They each put out their separate realistic films that were what it would look like if the grid went down. The one in the UK was centered on life in the UK if the grid went down. The one on National Geographic was focused on the US. But I was like, what are the odds that both of these things would put out these films showing the grid going down? And in both of them, they showed it being just total chaos. And a lot of people being wiped from the earth in a relatively quick period of time because of the amount of panic. But yeah, all of this was back in 2013. And it was quite an eye-opening time for me learning this information and just watching all this go down. And okay, I've been observing this for over a decade now. The NFL news, 9/11 Patriot Act, Patriots. So here we are now in 2026. Again, they keep giving us this building narrative. And yes, Janet Napolitano, 21st governor of Arizona, who left office on the 21st of January 2009, and that was to go to the Department of Homeland Security. Let me see, something didn't load there. Let me scroll back down and make sure I'm seeing everything that's supposed to be there. Okay, so Arizona is the Valentine's Day state. And next year, the Super Bowl 61 is on Valentine's Day. And remember, we used Valentine's Day a handful of years back to predict major crazy weather and power grids going down. We were right on about that prediction. And it was through Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum, things he'd said, and also Public Enemy putting out the album, What You Gonna Do When the Grid Goes Down, with Arizona on the cover, the Valentine's Day state. And that album, What You Gonna Do When the Grid Goes Down, came out 142 days before Valentine's Day, which can be written 14/2. Remember, the crazy weather had power out for a week in southern Texas, where people really weren't used to freezing weather in Houston. All throughout Texas, power was out in Georgia. Power was out in Portland, Oregon, parts of the city for over a week. That's my hometown. I remember because my mom and sister had to stay together for over a week, and it didn't go well with those two. Yeah, it's just it is really interesting how they do this. So one Super Bowl at a time. But then I started thinking more. The other year, they sacrificed DMX in the GOAT ritual for Brady after he won Super Bowl 55. DMX stands for Dark Man X. They reported that he was essentially dead on 4-3 after Brady won the Super Bowl at age 43 when GOAT equals 43, and he's on the song 4-3-2-1. The news broke on April 3rd, 21. If you've never heard the rap song 4-3-2-1, there's a bunch of rappers on it, including DMX, but it's LL Cool J's song, and LL Cool J ends by saying greatest of all time for GOAT. He also has Channel 43 on Sirius XM, does LL Cool J. But yeah, then DMX officially died on April 9th. Dark Man X. The Seahawks, their defense, its nickname, it used to be the Legion of Boom back when they were good. Now it has a new nickname. It's, what are they calling it again this year? The Dark Side. So the Dark Side defense, it fits in with this power outage theme at the halftime show. But yeah, I just noticed that this year on April 9th, which will be 4 days after Easter, we got Bad Bunny here, right? Bad Bunny. So 4 days after Easter is 60 days after the Super Bowl, April 9th. Again, this was a rematch of Super Bowl 49 in the 49ers Stadium, who's having all the power outage problems. April 9th is also the 99th day of the year. New England equals 99, who just lost, but the United States of America also equals 99. And the United States of America was named on September 9th, 99, which is also the state of California's birthday. And April 9th will be 1,301 days after the release of Bad Bunny's song, The Power Outage. 1301 is a lot like 131, which is the Super Bowl number. So it's an interesting date upcoming. And again, don't live in fear. My point is, again, you just don't want to get caught with your pants down if they do turn off the grid for a period of time. You just want to make sure that in your home, you have things like, some jugs of water, not that expensive. You got some non-perishable food. I know a lot of people, they just don't keep really any food at home. They just eat out all the time. There's not much there. Some non-perishable food, not something that's dependent on the fridge or freezer. Again, there's a lot of different options. Tubs of peanut butter. Peanut butter lasts. And the thing about peanut butter is, it's pretty inexpensive and it's very filling. If I was Sundays when I'm trying to cut and fast, I'll fast all day and then I'll take a big glob of peanut butter and then go work out at the gym. And I don't know, for me, I can do it on a glob of peanut butter if that's all I eat for the day. And within a can of peanut butter, there's several globs. I'm just saying there's all kinds of different ways. Cans of beans. Beans are inexpensive. Black beans, healthier than peanut butter. Inexpensive. You don't need to go out and buy a fortune. Just have, first aid kit, batteries, flashlight, water, non-perishables. Just in case things do get crazy, like they showed on that Channel 4 National Geographic thing, some way to protect yourself. If you don't like guns, there's things like bear spray. I almost think bear spray would be even more effective because it just it clogs up a whole area. You don't have to feel bad about killing somebody, but you'll blind them for days. Trust me, I know. I've been hit with bear spray by Antifa. It is not fun. You are out of commission. You are blinder than blind. But yeah, anyway, it is quite interesting that day, 60 days after, 4 days after Easter. Bad Bunny. What a Bad Bunny. He told us. Bad Bunny also equals 29, like grid, like football, like that was the winning score last night. They love to do that with the halftime performer. Bad Bunny. Here, let me just show you. That Most Pierce cipher, it always gets it done. Bad Bunny, grid, football. And we talked about how Bad Bunny was the same as football and we talked about that when they named him. You might recall that happened the day of the Mormon church shooting right after the Charlie Kirk story. And I pointed out how a bad Mormon is known as a jackrabbit Mormon or sometimes referred to as a bad bunny. It was all part of one big joke. But yeah, there's also this film by the same name. And you can watch it on YouTube. I haven't finished watching it. It's kind of slow. You maybe got to pay more attention. But the film begins with Revelation 16:16, and I thought that was interesting because, again, last night, the Super Bowl in the 49ers building, the 49ers won Super Bowl 16. Last night, the Seahawks won by 16 points. Again, in Week 16, the Seahawks had the epic 16-point comeback on the fourth quarter on the same day. Greg Biffle of Washington, number 16, died. Remember, Washington equals 49 like Revelation, like 49ers hosted. And again, Revelation, the battle of good and evil. San Francisco, where the Church of Satan was founded. It's not to say that if you're from San Francisco, you're a bad person. I personally like that city a lot. But yeah, the Church of Satan was founded there. And you know what? I guess just even put it out there. Some really interesting Church of Satanist members have interacted with me in public when I'm out teaching this knowledge on the streets. And I don't even think all Church of Satan members are bad. Again, if you actually haven't researched the Church of Satan, it's really about self-worship, which to me is not the greatest thing. But these people tend to be a lot more honest and interesting and intriguing than a lot of supposed Christians. Anyway, yeah, Revelation 16:16. Then they gathered the kings together to the place that in Hebrew is called Armageddon. Remember, Armageddon equals 82, like Seattle, like New England Patriots, like yesterday's date could be written 8/2. June 12th, interesting date this year. It's a date with 44 numerology, like earthquake. Revelation 6:12, there's a massive earthquake. I think we're going to see Minneapolis in the headlines that day too, maybe even another shooting thing, just because it's the 612 area code. But the Bad Bunny album that title in Spanish has to do with summer. So, the day right after Easter, if that's not the day, it's spring. His album has to do with summer. So August 2nd is in the time of summer. And I was looking at August 2nd. There have been some notable power outages, but nothing as crazy as what's been foreshadowed. Canada actually got the worst of it with power outages on August 2nd. Oh, yeah, don't forget, they just had this 4.2 magnitude earthquake, like the Beast rules for 42 months, right before 42 points in the Super Bowl. That was on the anniversary of the Seahawks winning the Super Bowl. You know what? Do you guys remember how after the Seahawks won the Super Bowl, there was some big shake in the Hell's Kitchen neighborhood after Super Bowl 48? That just came to my mind. Just like how when the Super Bowl MVP took the podium after Super Bowl 48, whose name equaled 48, a guy ran up to the podium and said 9/11 was an inside job. Let me see. Shake felt in Hell's Kitchen neighborhood after Super Bowl 48. Let me see if I'm tripping. I don't think no. The AI is saying that it doesn't remember. Let's go back and research that. There was some interesting shaking in the Hell's Kitchen neighborhood, and I'm pretty sure it was the day of Super Bowl 48. I'm going to go back and research that more later because it just snapped into my mind. But I don't think I am wrong about that. I think there was something reported. Anyway, the earthquake, the series of earthquakes, but the biggest of which they said was at 7:01 a.m. on February 2nd. That's the 421st minute of the day. 421 is the 82nd prime number. Again, I covered this leading up to the Super Bowl. And they compared it to a 6.0 between the 49ers and Chargers years earlier. But yeah, the 421st minute right before this meeting. And now seemingly this song that's connected to this little short film that talks about Armageddon and Revelation. The Seahawks also renamed their field Lumen Field November 19th. That is the day leaving 42 days left in the year. Quite fitting for the 42nd state. Lumination, light. It contrasts with the dark side. You know what I mean? The Seahawks defense, the dark side. And then there's this. Trump calls Bad Bunny's halftime show performance one of the worst ever. Notice how they put the parentheses on that? One of the worst ever, 82. Go figure. Trump runs on mega, the highest degree of the Church of Satan. Oh, by the way, August 2nd is the 214th day of the year. Don't forget it. Church of Satan, 214. 214. Church of Satan, August 2nd. Again, his album is about the summer. And another interesting date that's not summer, but, just for the record, from the Super Bowl to Easter this year is 56 days. And again, 4 days after that, we talked about is April 9th. But I noticed a date that's shortly after that, April 17th. That is going to be exactly 206 weeks after the release of this song. I meant to put the screenshot up there, but again, Seattle's the 206. Their kicker just set a record in the game with 206 points made in an entire season, just like how the last time the Seahawks won the Super Bowl, Russell Wilson had 206 passing yards. And Don't forget the Seahawks playoff run began on the 206th day of the coach's age. McDonald with the star tight end Barner. Did you notice how they set up? They set up part of the Bad Bunny stage looking like a farm. And right after the halftime show, you get Barner scoring for Coach EIEIO McDonald. If the power goes out, we need to go back to candlesticks. We might also have to go back to being farmers. In a way, I almost hope it happens. But yeah, April 17th is also the 107th day of the year, and Seattle also equals 107. 17/4 is the way the date can be written, like number of the beast is 174, going with the 666 yards in the game. But again, the problem with that date is it's spring, where his album alludes to summer. But then the Bad Bunny thing does make me think maybe around Easter time. So again, don't live in fear. They've been foreshadowing this power outage thing for a long time now. Over a decade's gone by. It still hasn't happened. Maybe it's still another decade away, and maybe they're just going to keep alluding to this thing that's coming, this world-changing event that's coming. By the way, his album translates to a summer without you. But you never know. So having some supplies on hand, it's better to not get caught with your pants down. And the thing is, if you got extra beans, extra peanut butter, you can slowly eat those things over time too, rather than let them go to waste. I'm not into spending $1,000 on basement snacks. You see people selling that kind of stuff. Get these huge ammo buckets of dried potatoes in case the world. Can you imagine carrying around your 50-pound bucket of dried potatoes? Where are you going to get some water to put it in there to mix it? And just, I would rather not. Anyway, August 2nd is interesting because it's also 175 days after the Super Bowl. Golden State equals 175, a nickname for California. San Francisco Bay Area, where the game was, is 175. Illumination is 175. Obviously, turning the lights out is the opposite. August 2nd is a word also equals 175. So does Arizona State, just because of Janet Napolitano being the governor there. The Phoenix comes from the ashes. But yeah, I got to wrap it up. I got to go get my daughter. I went overtime on that. But yeah, I just want to get those observations out there. And yeah, again, don't live in fear. I mean, if you're sometimes waking up is a scary thing. Like, oh my God, I didn't know all this stuff was going on. This doesn't go on your whole lifetime. So you don't need to freak out. Might be new to you, but yeah, they are telling us that they got plans for us. And you just don't want to get beat by those plans. You want to just, knowledge is power. Okay. The day that happens, I'm not going to panic. I'm going to be prepared. If 49ers win Super Bowl 61, it'll break a 32-year drought. Kyle Shanahan's dad won his first Super Bowl in Super Bowl 32. That's interesting. Okay. I don't think it's going to be them, though. 49ers are 18-1 to win Super Bowl 61. That's interesting, but I still don't think it's going to be them. LaDonna Franklin. Thank you very much, LaDonna Franklin. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the mail you sent me. Thank you. Zach, both Michael, 5,000 watts, and Demond Wilson both died 172 days after the 60th anniversary of the Watts riots in L.A., which was August 11th, 2025. That's hip-hop's birthday anniversary. That 172 is what was encoded in the Public Enemy What You Gonna Do When the Grid Goes Down album title. Yeah, that's true. And it's also the Jesuit motto, Ad Merum Dei Gloriam, that equals 172. All right, I do got to get my daughter. Thanks again to everyone who hits the like and the share. And yeah, it really is interesting how they keep tying this in with San Francisco and the NFL. And don't forget, I think I might have forgotten to make the point about how they did this first ritual with Pittsburgh and San Francisco at Candlestick. But of course, Pittsburgh's the steel city, and it's steel that is so necessary for the power grid. So there's something about that. They say the kind of thing that could rattle steel to fault the grid is like an EMP type of thing. So, of course, a cyber attack too. But it's not an accident they did it with the Steelers, which also have the 50 connection, like San Francisco going with the power going out in San Francisco 50 days before the Super Bowl. But yeah, and again, satanic and 666 yards in the game last night. And maybe that number of the beast date shortly after Easter with the Bad Bunny, but we'll see soon enough. All right, True Seeker, we'll leave it there for now. And until next time.